Hi and welcome to my chats with dads, where I speak to busy dads who are running or leading in business about how they manage their energy, their focus, and their health whilst they're spinning so many plates. If you're watching live or you've got any questions or comments, please let us know or say hi. And I'm delighted to welcome today's brilliant guest, a dad and school leader, Simon Murphy. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, Paul. Hi, everyone. And listen, thanks for having us on. Yeah. So first and foremost, yeah, I am a dad, married dad. We very lucky to have one daughter, Charlotte. She's 6. So I'll be able to talk about sort of some of the early years and some of those parts that have come in with her. I won't, unfortunately, be able to offer any advice about what it's like when you're managing your energy around teenagers. I am fortunate enough to be a head teacher of a lovely school on the Isle of Man called Scolthert Lamora. And for the past 10 months and sort of all of this academic year, I've also been acting head teacher of a second school close to us in the region as well. So that's a little bit about me. And as we'll get into in the conversation, big sort of passion in fitness and exercise, and that I guess will come out as maybe one of the pillars of yours that resonates the most with me.
Yeah, fab. Thanks for the intro. And yeah, you're a man who's spread thin. Then, if you're an acting head for a second school as well, I'm sure that places quite a lot of demand on your time and your energy.
Yeah, well, I think the main thing is it's being efficient, isn't it? And it's like putting systems. It can sound a bit trite, but putting those systems like in place for you. So like, what are the non-negotiables? And like, so we talked a little bit before this started about if you've got 2 schools looking at a week, it's half and half. And then, so like for me, the main thing is I'll have certain events that are going on in schools that are set, like when your assemblies are or when certain meetings are in certain schools. But outside of that, there's that flexibility there. And then whatever school has the demand first, whoever asks to meet you first, whatever, you block in that meeting, that sort of request there. And then you build out your day in that location, around that. And I think the other thing that I'm like very lucky to do, and the part of my job that obviously it's all about like the children and their experience of school, but the part of the job that like really sets my heart on fire nowadays, and I sort of enjoy the most, is how you're developing the team inside the school. So then when you're in my position across 2 sites, how have you developed the 2 teams and the different schools that are then able to run the school, kind of irrespective with you, and you're more of that coach and that mentor to those 2 respective teams.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, the way to look at it. And I mean, I guess fortunately for you and for them, you've had that experience anyway in doing that, the first job of that. So that's probably enabled you to be able to sort of spread it and split it between the 2. I suspect if that opportunity had come sooner in your career, it might have been a slightly different story, maybe.
Yeah, do you know what? It's interesting because when I took on the headship at the school here initially, we went through some steps to make so like the deputy head teacher at that point in time still had a classroom responsibility. So one of the things that we did in that first year is obviously you have to look at the budget and your allocations and things like that. But we got to a point where we knew going into the second year of me being present was that the deputy head teacher could be completely out of class. And we were kind of creating a model where we felt the school was going to be really sustainable and also actually was going to build some capacity in it for people to be able to develop in their roles. And it's interesting that, just so happened that having that set up inside that first year coincided with them being asked, exactly at that time to look over and look after a second school.
Yeah.
So we built the system that we felt would be right and actually would be agile enough for potentially something like that in the future. It's becoming more popular over here to have head teachers across more than one school because, some of the sizes of the primary schools might not be comparable to, some of the bigger schools in the UK. But it was interesting that we got to a point where, like you say, we'd solidified school number one, like base camp, home camp, however.
Yeah.
And then that plate spinning and spinning well then allows you to like step out from that, and how you're then working with that team is a little bit different because it's about just coaching and growing those leaders inside that school that are very comfortable in that, and you're able to have your attentions elsewhere.
Yeah. So one of the first questions I like to ask my guests is to kind of talk about, obviously you've got a lot to manage and you've got your daughter as well. So how do you kind of protect your energy and your focus and look after your health so that you can give the best to your family and to your role? And is there anything over the last few years that you've sort of had to deliberately work on to try and improve things in any of those areas?
I think, I'd say like about myself, I know on a day when I don't go to the gym or don't train, I'll be a worse version of myself, right?
Yeah.
But you want to prioritize, because look, yeah, I'm busy, but everyone's busy. So yeah, I know that for me, training or the lack of training will make me a worse human being to be around, and I will be my best self as a partner, a dad, whatever hat you're wearing with that in the day. And so, like, for example, we have moved back from the Middle East to the UK. Middle East, the kids go into school super early. They finish slightly earlier compared to kind of UK because of the heat. Here, kids are later in school and finish, slightly later as well. So, one of the shifts, and again, it's a tiny thing when you think about life as a whole, but the idea from no longer training in the afternoon, 4 or 5 o'clock time, to in the morning, and it's a real targeted, focused hour. So some of the non-negotiables are, the alarm goes off 5:30 every morning. That's me up, glass of water, the vitamins, getting ready, packing all of the Tupperware boxes of food together into the bag, and that's you kind of gone for the day. But that then unlocks being in a better mindset through the day in work, being a more available dad. All those little mental check boxes that you've got in your day are done. 5, 6 o'clock rolls around, and you're there for meal time, for bath time, for bedtime, and you're sort of very present in those moments. And so, yeah, for me over the past couple of years, it's been about some small shifts that then take care of the things that you need, but that then also unlock the other things that bring that better togetherness for you. Yeah.
I mean, it's a really good point, and it's something, because I've worked with lots of dads who have let things kind of slip or gone to chance, and they're not as deliberate about some of those daily actions, and usually the bigger wins come from the smaller things, such as creating a routine that works for you in the morning. And when you sort of talk about a morning routine, a lot of people will sort of shudder and go, oh my god, I'm not getting up at 4 and going in an ice bath, or so it's not the influencer thing that we're going for here. What it really is about sort of setting a tone for you and for the day that's going to set you off on the right foot. And I think there's a psychological element to having that routine in place, because you know, for you, for example, you get up, you've got your stuff organized, ready for your food and your nutrition for the day. You've probably got your kit ready for the gym. You're going in and getting your workout done, and then that's done. That's nailed. The rest of the day, then you've started on a real positive, and you're not going to be disappointed about how you started the day, because you started it in the way you've set out to, and the way you're deliberate about it. So I think there's an element of, you feel good from the physical activity, yes, but also you feel good psychologically because you've started the day on a positive footing. I think a lot of people miss that point.
Yeah, and like, again, it's like, some of it is miserable, right? And at times you're tired. But like, I think so. So like, take a Sunday. I go shopping, right? I go and do food shopping on a Sunday afternoon, right? But to prepare food for the Monday would then mean you're either rushing around in the evening after you've been, or you're ignoring like time with Charlotte or whatever on at the end of the weekend to get it done. So when I go on the Sunday afternoon, I get, I mean, it's chicken, salmon, rice, and vegetables, right? That you're eating for your lunches through the week. It's fairly consistent stuff. So the chicken, the salmon, the vegetables will all just be bought frozen on that Sunday afternoon trip. They'll be chucked in the freezer. And then the Sunday morning at about 6:30 a.m. in the morning on a Sunday, I'll get up then and I'll do those. So I'm always buying the food for the lunches for the week a week ahead of time. Because the actual time that's the easiest, because it doesn't take long to put together, right? It's an hour where no one else is up in the house. I'm not letting anyone down by not being present. There's no queue over using the oven, the kettle, the hob. There's no arguments around it. Everything's done, everything's tidied, everything's put away. And normally you get into the point where you're just finishing and you'll hear those little footsteps start to patter down the steps, and you're good to go. You're offering to make her a drink, and you're going in and you're sitting down and you're snuggling, watching TV and whatever. Everything's taken care of, and you've just unlocked that. You've unlocked that time. So yeah, look, you're talking about something that's minute in like the week, but it makes a big difference. It just it unlocks all that other time.
No, absolutely does. And like you said, if you hadn't taken the time to get organized, then not only are you going to miss that sort of that morning time, those extra snuggles and that extra conversation, you're also going to be a different person during that moment as well. If you're stressed about things or you're rushing to get things done, and they come to you to say good morning, you're going to be, oh yeah, morning, but I've got to get this done, I've got to do this. So you sort of put yourself at a disadvantage and a bit out of sync as well. So, and I think that's why, that's what it can lead to, that disappointment then. And then if you actually sit back and analyze your day, you started the day in a really bad place. And it can just set the day up to just be an awful day, or a suboptimal day. So I think it's really important to kind of zoom out a little bit, kind of maybe have a little bit of an audit. How's my day go? How does my day generally go? How does my week generally go? How can I make improvements, and where can I fit those little bits and pieces in that are going to just make everything easier? And sounds like that's exactly what you've done. Especially when you had the change of life when you came, back to the UK, because everything sort of shifted a little bit in terms of timescales. So you've had to, reorganize a little bit there, I think, and make the most of it.
Yeah, and like, and another thing that is not sort of necessarily set with home, but you can always. I always tend to sense, like where you have like good days and bad days. And I take this view with work, and again, like I work in schools, but people I'm sure could apply it to other workplaces. But the way I feel about school is that you've got like three main touch points. So you've got the students, you've got the parents, and then you've got the staff. And I always know that on a day in which I hit enough amount of time with those three areas will be the days that I sense to be the best days. So like days when you're just inevitably caught up in meetings and you don't get up and move around, and you maybe only spend your time with staff. Fortunately, touch wood, so far I haven't necessarily had a day where I'm just in meetings with parents all day, you know. But when you're only going into kind of one area, I feel you get a kind of limited view of how the school is running, and you just get that kind of that limited sense of your day. And let's face it, some days you might be called to other things, you might have meetings outside of the school, and you won't hit any of those touch points. And those tend to be, you know, those, I think a lot of people must get that feeling when you feel like you've had a productive day, but you haven't actually done anything, that kind of that sense. And for me, it tends to be that then there's a lack, that you haven't hit one of those areas, and that's sort of what's behind it.
Yeah, I like that. I kind of think of it, there's a bit of a metaphor for just having a happy life there, in that when you hit all of those important touch points, you're just a happier creature at the end of it, you know. So because you know, everybody can get sort of sucked into one thing, can't they? Especially, you know, modern jobs these days tend to be desk based at a computer. You probably interact with several people every day around you, but a lot of people won't really do much more outside of that. They won't necessarily move much. They maybe won't get outside. They maybe won't see people they would like to spend time with. And so that then is lacking, isn't it, through the day as well. So yeah, it's nice. Life sort of has a way of teaching us the best way. Again, when you sort of zoom out and look at when those days feel right, you know, life sort of saying to you, well, this is the way to do it. You know, have all those multiple touch points, be a part of all of those people's lives, and then you'll have the best experience as well.
Yeah. No, it's intuitive, I guess, isn't it? Like at some point you will just sort of know, and you will get a sense for it and how it's gone. And I think for me, and again, like there's different stages of parenting and like the ages of your children and stuff like that as well, and that sort of all factors into it. But just building that routine for you that best unlocks the week and the time for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask you then, so we've obviously spoke off air, and I operate with my clients on four main pillars, those being nutrition, movement, recovery, and then your mindset. So we sort of touched on a little bit of nutrition and your sort of movement routine. And I'm assuming, because of your early rise and your organization in the morning, that the other end of that, before sleep, is fairly well organized. So have you got a kind of a routine around your sleep habits through the week?
No, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have a routine about it as such. If you spoke to my mom, she would be like, I've been the same since a child. Apparently, I used to just take myself off to bed like quite early from a young age. I've always been like fairly early up in the morning and then fairly early to go to sleep. I wouldn't say I have a routine as such. Look, I try and get rolling at about 9 p.m. to kind of head upstairs. I try and be asleep by sort of 9:30 every day. Again, like factoring in to the point of like, depending on when I'm setting off to the gym, I'm either probably up at 5 or 4:30 in the morning, so it's kind of relative. Past 6 months, I'll take a tablet of magnesium. Try and take that 10-15 minutes before sort of going to bed. I guess I know we're sort of talking about sleep here, but like one of the big things for me that I wish I'd sorted sooner was sort of nutrition. So like a big kind of marker in my life would be at 20, I was probably 150 kilos. I'm just under 100 now. So a lot of my kind of adult life, those kind of 20 years have been around getting nutrition right and getting back into a better shape. And quite a lot of that has been then, some of it's been self-led, particularly when it was kind of really significant weight loss, because actually just making some cuts at that point were enough to see significant weight loss. Whereas like now you're leaning into a couple of different coaches, working with people to kind of find out what's best for you. And part of that in fine tuning some of the nutrition for me that's worked has then been looking at a setup where it's probably like 4 kind of eating times a day. One of which is, I guess, factored into the sleep routine, which is by all standards, a big bowl of Greek yogurt, some whey protein into that, some berries, and I tend to have that about 8:30 p.m. at night. So you've got that slow release of the protein. It tends to be fat-free yogurt, but you got a bit of that fat release as well, kind of going on in your system overnight. So I've found that once you sort of settle back outside of any kind of like traveling days or periods of time, that meal before bed, the magnesium, 20 minutes or whatever before it's in your system before you're going to bed, that's coupled towards a fairly decent night's sleep for me.
Okay, it's interesting. And clearly you've been proactive in doing some research about that, talking to people about how best to approach that. And that's a really, and it's a good way to do it. There's a lot of sort of discussion online about not eating before bed because the digestion process hampers your sleep. And there's an element of truth to that, but it depends what you eat, really. And what you're doing, the approach you're taking now, actually you're promoting muscle protein synthesis, which is a good thing to try and do, and you don't have that happening through the night when you sleep. So actually you're giving that a final kind of kick for the day before you settle down. So it's not a bad strategy in terms of overall metabolic health and energy levels, and just getting enough protein in, which most men, certainly that I work with, and probably in general, don't really eat enough protein to support the optimal health for them. So it's a really, really good strategy. If it helps with your sleep as well, then that's positive too, because one of the things that I tend to end up working on with clients, even though they don't come to me for help with sleep, is that we generally do improve people's sleep. And it plays a massive role in fat loss, in weight management, in energy levels, in capability to train, in strength gains. The list just keeps going on. And a lot of people don't really realize that perhaps that's one of the weaknesses that they've got is their sleep routine and their amount of quality sleep. Over the last few years, I've put more and more emphasis on it when I'm working with someone. Even if they don't come to me and say, I need help with sleep, we're still going to make improvements in that area because it can help with the other goals that people have got usually. So it's a huge area, and one that I think everyone should really have a look at, especially, busy dads who have got so much going on and so many, we overcommit usually, don't we, to things. And so when you do that, you've got to sort of protect yourself a little bit and have that restorative quality rest as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Probably an area of like weakness for me where I probably need to do more is being willing to accept some rest in regards to like a couple of days a week, maybe not training, right? And actually would potentially, like, I know myself, you could probably train a little bit more intensively if you were to kind of like drop a day out or something like that. You know, you'd come back a bit refreshed or whatever. Whereas I'm kind of quite happy to just kind of go through. I think that would be the area of sort of recovery for me that would be a big one. And then, you know, it's I mean, it's so different for this is one where it must be massively linked to like the age of your children, because you know, 0 to 2 was pretty much a write-off. But you know, isn't the body incredible at adapting and finding energy stores from you? Because whilst they don't remember sleeping an awful lot at that point in time, I was still able to do a lot of what I was doing now. But when I think back, it would feel, you know, like it would take a monumental effort to be able to do it. So it's quite incredible how the body is able to sort of bring you that when you need it.
Yeah, no, it's a marvel of engineering, isn't it? Our body, and like you said, you know, it's incredible. You don't really notice it during that phase. So that pain of the lack of sleep and, you know, all the troubles that come with having really young children, the difficulties that come with that, you're just in sort of almost survival mode, aren't you? And you're just getting through it, doing the best you possibly can. Hopefully you're part of a team and you know, you've got your partner helping and what have you. And then it's not until later on you look back at that and kind of reflect and maybe learn some lessons from it. And like you said earlier, there's going to be phases all the way through. So, you know, yours is 6, mine's 10, nearly 11 now. And now we're entering into a brand new area, you know, with my daughter. I'm sort of stuck between the "I love you, Daddy" and the "oh my God, you're so embarrassing" section now. So I've got this whole other thing to learn now, and that's going to then affect, you know, my schedule potentially and my time, because she's joining clubs and doing, you know, she's doing swimming and jiu-jitsu and drumming and all these other things. So we're fitting those things into the family schedule, and then having to make adjustments, the both of us, you know, to support the family. So it's an ongoing, ever learning process, I think.
Yeah, well, at some point, then the nights out are going to come, and you know, traveling overseas without you, and that's part, and you know, all of that's going to bring a whole different level of like sleepless night as well for everyone involved in sort of the family. So yeah, definitely different phases and stages.
So I want to ask about whether, you know, for you and sort of in terms of managing your health and your energy, and maybe to do with your fitness goals, is there any kind of one person or like an author or an influencer of some kind, or a book or a podcast or something that you would sort of, you know, care to mention that's been a help to you or an influence for you?
Yeah, so I guess there was a couple. I wrote them down just to make sure I just got the names right and just didn't forget. So listen, one of the ones that I do keep in the office, I mean, there's a range of them, but I've got a copy of the Daily Dad. So like the Ryan Holiday kind of stoic out of that side. I like that one because it's like for anyone who hasn't read it, it's like it's a page a day meditation that just grounds you and reminds you about the job you're doing and the responsibility that's there upon you. In regards to nutrition, so there was a great book. I did it as an audio book a couple of years ago, and that was Ultra Processed People. So that's Chris Van Tulken. That was really good. I would recommend, if anyone hasn't read it, listen to it, to listen to it, because it's him that reads it. And it's his brother who chimes in on some of the extras as well, and it sort of adds a bit of that kind of connection to it. But that's that. I guess I found that really interesting because it's kind of things that I already knew and I'd come to terms with the fact of like where I'd been heavier in the past and stuff like that, things that I had done. But then when you're hearing just how frank some of the stuff is around it, it does really make you consider it when you're then considering it on your child. So it was that part. And again, listen, I want to be very, very, very clear. I will not put like real stringent nutritional bits on Charlotte as if it was me. But what I will do is try and upskill myself and my knowledge of what's good nutrition, bad nutrition, and try and offer us some pointers and some advice in terms of maybe not falling into some of the pitfalls that I did, while still enjoying what she eats. The only other one that I thought of that had a real big impact, this would be going back probably 5-6 years ago now since I read it, was Essentialism by Greg McKeown. So that just came into just the idea of how you shape your day and what's the most important things. One of the good things that I'm sure happens across education and also in the private corporate world is that everyone's always got 50 priorities, but the reality is you simply can't. So what is the priority? And I just remember that book and then the sort of the matching podcasts which she brought out, just really grounding you and sort of rooting you around that.
Yeah. No, great. That's 3 really great shouts there. I've got the Ultra Processed People book as well over on a shelf over there, and I would highly recommend that, especially for parents out there to read, because if you've not really thought about what the ultra processed food environment is doing for us, it's a serious eye opener to have a read of that book. And like yourself, obviously, obviously I'm a nutrition coach and I'm into fitness coaching. And so my daughter, I'm not treating her like a client, but I'm trying to educate in as best a way as I can so that she's got the facts about things and she sort of makes some of her own choices. And sometimes she wants to choose the stuff that in my head I'm going, no. But we have to have balance in life, so it's the education that's important, I think, really on that.
Yeah, and I think, like, for me, the most important thing is like it's the moment, isn't it? So sure, at the weekend, I'll go and grab out of the fridge something that I probably pre-prepared for me, which is like rice, salmon, veg, whatever. And we'll be sat down, and she'll ask questions about it, and I'll say, this is why I'm eating this. This is a good food source for sort of building your muscles. This is what will give me some energy for going running, and that's fine. And that hopefully gives her some things to consider when she's looking at her plate and whatever. Yeah. But at the same time, like, something that's a real, like, hard line is also not to be an idiot with it, because if she turns around and says, "Daddy, can we go and get ice cream?" We're going to go and get ice cream because it's about the moment together, the connection. Yeah. It's about a lot more than the actual food, and it's so knowing that you want to take care of it yourself and you want to take care of your nutrition, but not allowing it to become such a line in the sand for you that you then can't build those relationships and all of the other things that it brings in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and this is something that I try and impress on when I work with clients one-to-one, is that you don't want to rob the joy of food, because there's a joy in eating it by yourself. and having nice things to eat, and then there's the social aspect of what food is as well. So I think that if people are naturally lean towards the all or nothing kind of bracket when they're coming to making changes, that can be a bit of a downfall, because if you just say, well, I'm never going to have chocolate again, or I'm never going to have beer, or whatever it is going to be, that just becomes a hardship, and it often backfires and ends up being a carnage, potentially. So I think, you've got to get that balance right, really, of 70-80% of the time you're trying to look after yourself and fuel yourself well and think about what you're giving to your body, and then you've still got room for the fun stuff, and you can take part in things and enjoy things with everybody, and you're not left out and you're not feeling like you've missed something.
Yeah, I mean, and that sort of stacks up in general with what people say, isn't it? And I think for you as a coach or whatever, it's giving people the skills and the mindset to go out into the world. Because I know that, like, when I've been, because it becomes a bit addictive, and your mindset becomes like so dialed in with kind of wanting to get through those particular goals and stuff, that it then does become hard when you look at your calendar and you've got three birthdays and whatever else to kind of navigate in a month. But the reality is that they're there, and they're there to be enjoyed.
Yeah.
But how you then just go through them, making some sensible choices that still allow you to have fun. And you're right. The joy that it brings by bringing people together and enjoying that experience.
Yeah. Well, and like you just said, you're never actually going to be able to avoid these things, and a lot of people sort of, I'm waiting for the right time to make a change, but there isn't one. There's always birthdays, there's always holidays, there's always celebrations, there's always something going on. There's summer coming, everyone's going to be barbecuing and having ice creams, and there's an endless list of occasions and things that are just going to get in the way. So actually the best thing to do is to just, if you've got a goal in mind, is to just start now, start simple, and just take all of that into consideration. You can't avoid those things, so it's about making it all fit, really, so that your usual way of operating is conducive to your goal, and then the other stuff is fine. It just fits in. So
it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, it is. So we've gone rattling through 37 minutes really quickly. It's been a great conversation. So just before we finish up, you did touch on one of your sort of daily non-negotiables earlier. So I just wanted to ask if you've got any others that you think might be useful to sort of share, in terms of maybe giving people ideas or understanding, what sort of things yours are.
So listen, I'm always set up food wise. I have fairly strict parameters in about just getting up, exercising, getting that boxed off for the day, kind of freeing up the rest of the time. I tend to try and again, I do think like 10,000 steps is a bit of an arbitrary number that someone has pulled from somewhere. However, I do think there's a bit of sense in having your active time, your gym time, and then also your just general activity through the day. So I tend to look at making sure that I hit around that number of steps in the day that I know I've been out and about. And again, it depends. It depends where you're at with your partner, your relationship at home, or things like that. Then when you share out your week, what those daily negotiables look like, because the way that it shakes out in our house, like one of the big ones for me is bedtime. So like I'll do bedtimes, and so it's structuring then everything else in my day to make sure as well that I'm able to get that privilege, because isn't it amazing to get to put a little person down to bed, knowing that you and your partner, have got to an end of another day without messing it up. As you're slowly taking this young human on this journey of life, and it's another day for you sort of pat on the back. And so that's definitely the one that's in there. that you then reverse engineer the rest of the day around to make sure that you're like present for that. However, I, you know, appreciating that in another household, it might be that, you know, yours might be dinner time, or yours might be the morning side of the running, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely wherever I'm got my opportunity to kind of step up and have that responsibility in that sort of time, yeah, those become some of those daily non-negotiables as well.
Yeah, fab. Yeah, I like what you said there as well about sort of looking at the week as a whole with your partner. I think sometimes a lot of people can get just a little bit inward looking and just think about themselves. And actually, if you're part of a team like that, there should be a shared vision for what the week is, and so that everybody can fit their non-negotiables in. And sometimes you negotiate out your non-negotiables because it just fits better for the week and for the team. So I think that's a really important point to make. You know, when you've got a goal, a serious goal. So let's say, for example, you know, if you're training for a big event, a high rocks type event, that's time consuming. And so it has to fit to the family unit. It's got to be agreed upon. You can't just go and say, you're just going out the door and saying, I'm going for a run for an hour or whatever you're doing. So you have to build all that in. It's a bit of a team effort, I think. So, you know, it might be an individual personal goal, but you have to have that support and that accountability and that help around you to be able to actually deliver.
Yeah, 100%. And again, you know, even if it's even if people don't necessarily have those bold goals before, and it's just, you know, general exercise, general health, you know, each member of the team needs their own time, don't they? So just like balancing out that week and organizing your week so that everyone gets their time that allows them to sort of you know, be themselves as well, because that's a massive thing about parenthood, is I think sometimes people can lose a bit of their identity, particularly like in those first couple of years. So it's really important that when things are spinning and you're able to kind of step outward again, that people have got the time to go and explore, you know, what makes them who they are.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for the conversation today. Really enjoyed it, and hopefully it was useful for anyone that's watching. If anyone wants to get in touch with you and sort of find out what you're up to at the moment, what's the best way for them to find you?
The best way would just be to follow any of the links from the stuff around here and go through LinkedIn. And I've really appreciated it. And it's great to talk about fatherhood and that journey, and just build I really appreciate what you're doing and kind of building a sense of community amongst dads as well. You know, where we can just lean into one another. Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, and on that note, I just want to say that I've relocated our private gym to a brand new premises in Bristol. So if you're in Bristol and you're watching this and you're a dad who's looking to make a few changes, maybe got a bit out of shape, maybe, you know, used to do some sport and gym activities and don't really know how to get back into it and sort yourself out, I've got an amazing group of dads. It's dads only strength and conditioning circuits on a Sunday morning and a Wednesday morning in the north of Bristol. Have a little look at that link there to see what it's all about. The first session is free. You can just come and try it for free and see what it's all about. And everyone who's ever come and tried it has ended up signing up because it's that good, even though I'm blowing my own trumpet. But the thing about it really is the community. The guys in the room just make it. So it's sort of grown into its own community without me really intentionally doing that. So if you're in Bristol and you're looking to, you know, get active again, then we've got guys of all shapes and sizes, all different abilities, and we tailor everything to the individual. So give that a little click and have a look at that. So thank you very much once again, Simon. It's been an awesome conversation, and go and enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, you too. Yeah, all the best, and thanks very much, Paul.
Yeah, thanks.